Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. I beg to present a report of the Committee on Information, Communication Technology and National Guidance on the operations and performance of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. Right Honorable Speaker, I wish to lay on table the report and the minutes the committee used while processing the report. I beg to lay. Right Honorable Speaker, over the years, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation has experienced challenges in sustaining operations, and in the face of competition has almost lost its status of a leading broadcaster for Uganda, which has occasioned realization of low revenue insufficient to support its capacity of operation. It continues to face challenges of unproductive source of funding, deficit on wages, lack of funding for local content production and programming, and automated business process and high satellite charges. Right Honorable Speaker, the findings, observations, and recommendations of the committee. Challenges, Right Honorable Speaker. The committee observed that the positioning of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation sites in far-flung locations attract attendant challenges like inadequate monitoring, slow emergency response to breakdown, and inadequate security of the sites, which affects safety, quality of equipment, and programming. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the committee recommends that government through the Ministry of Works and Transport and its agencies should support in routine maintenance of all roads leading to the sites of UBC across the country. The committee also recommends that the staff of UBC at regional centers and sites be provided with the requisite facilitation, including transport means to access the site, and that UBC should procure the necessary software like supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA, and surveillance cameras at all sites. Encroachment on UBC land across the country. Right Honorable Speaker, allegations of encroachment on UBC land were also made on up-country sites like Nyaburiza in Mbarara, Mwizi, and Soroti, Dakabela. The committee makes the following observations. The lack of proper ownership document for some of the land, including Bwalesi, Kololo, Wanyange, Namatala, and the roads to most of the sites are not clear. The land is idle and not fenced off. All these issues expose the land to threats of grabbing. There was giving out of some portions of UBC land under unclear circumstances in areas like Dakabela in Soroti and Namatala. The inadequate funding has affected the security and recovery of encroached land. Most of the encroachment claims have not been reported to the police for investigation and redress. The operation of the corporation, the operations of the corporation are at stake at Kololo National Operating Center, since the certificate of title for the land is in possession of Uganda Telecommunication Limited, now Uganda Telecommunication Corporation Limited, which is also in business with another private company. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the ownership of land at Bwalesi offered by a resident has been affected by lack of transfer of this land to UBC, since this has never been formalized and the corporation's occupation is under threat. There is need to open up boundaries for all UBC land to confirm the alleged encroachment and the need for an audit to all corporations' land. Right Honorable Speaker and members, the committee recommends that there should be urgent opening of boundaries of all UBC land with efforts geared towards surveying and securing ownership. Attention should be placed at the regularization of ownership of Bwalesi land. Government should secure and reclaim all UBC land at all sites that has been grabbed. The Auditor General, committee also recommends that the Auditor General audit all the land attached to UBC to ascertain its ownership and report the finding back to this House within 6 months.
Procedure, point of procedure, Hon Ssemujju.
Mr. Speaker, the rules are very clear on our sitting arrangement. And I have not had any motion to suspend. So the procedure issue I am raising is whether NRM people should come and contaminate our side. Yet clearly in the rules, they have their own side, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable colleagues, I think what is critical is a strong word, contaminating. I think colleagues, by associating, you can't contaminate each other. You know, previously we've even had cross-pollination on this side marrying here, this one marrying here, and we end up getting products. They are not contaminated products. Yeah, but honorable colleagues, respect the sitting, because I haven't called for free sitting. Okay, I haven't called for it. I usually do that if one side is very full. Okay, so we can quietly, we don't need to rush. We can quietly move, and then the front bench on this side is reserved for shadow cabinet, and the front bench on this side is reserved for government cabinet. Now, I require all shadow cabinet members to come and occupy their seats on the front bench. Okay? Because we want to be interacting we want colleagues to be facing and interacting with each other. Procedure, Honorable Chibadia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, in the same spirit, I think it has become a habit that some cabinet officials who are shadow ministers are just reminded of their positions. Wouldn't it be procedure right through your office, Right Honorable Speaker, that this becomes the last warning to all those shadow ministers who have forgotten their positions, so the next time maybe we ask LOP to relinquish them of their positions, Right Honorable Speaker.
I'm sure these colleagues always remember their position. They might forget where they are supposed to sit, but not their position. So the two are different. Okay?
Mr. Speaker, this parliament has spent money sending MPs to other parliaments to learn. If you are part of the team that went to the British Parliament, there is consultation in the lobby on your side. So when you see shadow ministers consulting, please don't be alarmed.
I don't know. Honorable Ssemujju loves that seat. I'll make an exemption for Honorable Ssemujju to maintain his seat. Because I always see him very uncomfortable. He loves his corner. Just like any of us. Like what I usually see here. The seats on this side are always empty, but I've never seen Honorable Chibadia seated. He's always standing. Even when the whole house is... I don't know whether he's standing even now. Okay. But that's a style that makes every one of us comfortable. Okay. So Honorable Chair, please. Yeah. We are progressing well.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. Right Honorable Speaker, the funding for Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. Well over, the national public broadcasters are funded fully 100% by their respective governments. Unlike Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, where the forces of demand and supply determines the funding modalities. The source of funding available to Uganda Broadcasting Corporation according to UBC Act 2005 includes grants of capital nature from government, loans, money payable to the corporation in discharge of its functions and commercial activities, donations made to the corporation, and the television viewing license fee, which was never implemented, leaving Uganda Broadcasting Corporation to rely only on internally generated fundings and government grants that has been inconsistent over time. The committee established that Uganda Broadcasting Corporation suffered budget cut and unpredictable government funding, where UBC budget was reduced from Uganda shillings 24.83 billion in financial year 2022-23 to 6.1 billion in financial year 2023-24. Relatedly, in financial year 2022-23, Parliament appropriated Uganda shillings 24.83 billion to UBC. The release by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development was a mere 8.29 billion, which greatly affected the corporation's planned output, including transmission of the direct-to-home services, as well as replacing the already obsolete equipment at Kololo National Operating Center. The committee observed that inadequate funding to Uganda Broadcasting Corporation affects operation and expansion of radio and television network and goes against the directive principle number 8 of state policy in the Constitution of Uganda, which provides for provision of adequate resources among the organs and institutions of government for their effective functioning. Similarly, inadequate funding is in conflict with the Uganda Broadcasting Policy of 2006, which enjoins government to adequately fund the public broadcaster in a manner that protects it from arbitrary interference with its budget. Right Honorable Speaker, UBC plays a critical role with regards to enabling Ugandans access information and therefore necessitating adequate public funding in the predictable multi-year funding to allow for long-term planning so as to guarantee its editorial independence. This is, however, far from reality, given that UBC is too underfunded to implement its statutory obligation. Observation 3. UBC subvention, which includes salaries and wages to staff, was equally affected by 80% reduction on funding to subventions. With this, the corporation may fail to pay staff salaries and other operational activities. 4. Whereas many national public broadcasters operate under the government ownership and funding, UBC is subjected to operate as a commercial entity and forced to compete with the private entities. The committee therefore recommends that 1. Government should always ensure that Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is adequately funded to enable it execute its mandate as is guided by the Broadcasting Policy of 2006. 2. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should ensure that the presidential directive to annually provide Uganda Broadcasting Corporation with the shilling 30 billion from financial year 2024-2025 is implemented, and in interim to ensure that the supplementary release of a maximum of 24 billion to UBC is provided to achieve efficient performance of the corporation. 3. Uganda Broadcasting Corporation be granted increased support in forms of funding and treated as an entity dispensing public good to the people of Uganda other than as a commercial entity. And recommendation 5, UBC should be provided with UBC should provide attendant work plan and budget to support the proposed budgetary allocations for the financial year 2024 alongside the revamped work plan and costing to enable adequate government planning and funding. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Member, on implementation of Phase 3 of the digital migration project. The committee notes that the implementation of digital migration policy was haphazard, uncoordinated, and lacked transparency. The process was rushed more to beat international deadline than to secure the best outcome for Uganda, and as such, its implementation has been greatly affected with a failure to complete Phase 3, which means that the areas whose equipments are out to be, which means there are areas whose equipments are ought to be urgently replaced. Most of the equipment has exceeded their lifespan and in urgent need of replacement, whose spare parts for most of them are no longer available in the market. The obsolete equipment also means Uganda Broadcasting Corporation cannot host as many stations as it should be, leading to loss of greatly needed revenue. In areas where new equipment was installed, the equipment has no redundancy provision to take care of situation where a fault occur. This means that repair cannot be undertaken when equipment is in use. The committee further observed that there is no remote network monitoring system to ensure that the equipment is monitored and faults are detected in real time. The absence of redundancy and network monitoring system means the disruptions are inevitable. The failure to pay the satellite fee of Uganda shillings of USD 1 million or equivalent of 3.7 billion to Intraset resulted into switching off of satellite connection to the country, and thus as only one Kampala station up and running with the 17 up-country sites, up-country stations off. Committee recommendation. Phase 2 of digital migration should be implemented to ensure an uninterrupted smooth radio and television experience for all areas in Uganda. That the debt of $1 million or equivalent of 3.7 billion onto Interset should be urgently paid for the switching on of satellite connection for the 17 up-country sites, which will boost coverage of the national broadcaster. Government should also budget for subsequent payment for the satellite fee. Government should speed up the connectivity of the DTT sites and up-country stations through the fiber optic under the national backbone infrastructure, whose connection will be safer, cheaper, and more sustainable. UBC should budget for procurement of equipment to support redundancy and network monitoring system for all its sites and stations, which shall improve the quality of the network, minimize the possibility of blackouts when the faults occurs. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the need to enhance coverage of the national broadcaster. A deliberate enhancement of radio and television coverage across the country will cater for remote regions of the country, as well as certain genres of public interest programming that private broadcasters are not willing or unable to invest in, where they are to be left out on their own. The committee recommends that government should urgently provide infrastructure to enable access to UBC radio and television network for all underserved areas. Government should also allocate the requisite funding to UBC for provision of direct home service, which will amount to 7.5 billion. Right Honorable Speaker, here the committee is recommending that if televisions like Star Times, GoTV are able to provide the disc and then decoder and receive satellites at home, why can't UBC provide the disc and decoders, and the citizens will only buy it once and receive the signals for about 17 or 20 channels without paying for them? This has taken long. So that's why we are asking for 7.5 billion so that UBC provides the citizens of Uganda with a decoder and the disc and the install, and they're able now to watch free, because most of the cases the DSTV switches off and it is difficult for the citizen to access information. The revamping of UBC. In 2016, there was an effort to revamp Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. This was informed by the recognition that Uganda Broadcasting Corporation was unable to execute its mandate in the status quo at the time contained. As part of the process of revamp the national broadcaster, the committee was set up to look into the operations of UBC. The review committee produced a report with a wide range of observations. That includes: 1, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation Act was not aligned with the broadcasting policy. The implementation of the digital migration policy was marred by lack of transparency and adequate public awareness. Uganda Broadcasting Corporation was not in compliance with the several laws, including UCC Act, the PPDA Act, National Social Security Fund Act, and persist violation of payment for pay as you earn and Uganda Revenue Authority. There was no proper record of an up-to-date valuation of UBC assets. UBC lacked a clear editorial policy to inform its decision-making and content strategy. And UBC radio and broadcasting infrastructure was completely run down and obsolete. Some of the transmission stations were not suitably positioned to achieve optimal coverage. Right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the review committee made recommendation that touches on varieties of facets of UBC with the aim of enabling the corporation to fully execute its mandate, and this includes one, that UBC Act should be amended to align it with the broadcasting policy, guarantee of the corporation editorial independency, transparency in board selection and accountability to the public through Parliament, as well as securing funding. That an audit should be undertaken to establish compliance gap and process set in place to ensure good legal and regulatory standing, including with the National Social Security Fund and Uganda Revenue Authority. UBC programming should be informed by a clear positioning in the broadcasting market that is based on its mandate, among other considerations. Right, Honorable Speaker, the review committee, unfortunately, most of the recommendations of UBC review committee have not been fully implemented several years later. The challenge observed by the review committee remains alive and has affected operationalization of UBC. Based on the above observation and recommendation by the review committee, the committee observes that the challenges that hamstrung the national broadcaster are still alive and well, and any attempt to improve UBC are bound to face stillbirth. The committee therefore recommends that UBC review committee should be the recommendation of UBC committee should be fully implemented with a view of improving the operation of the national broadcaster. The committee further recommends that the above recommendation be implemented within 2 years. UBC should be restructured with relevant and vibrant human resources put in place, which will ensure that mandate, performance management, terms of employment, and the nature of human resources will implement most of the recommendations of the review committee. Right, Honorable Speaker, the enforcement of the collection of television license fee. A television license fee that had been introduced in 2005 was quickly abandoned at the inception following public outcry and the intervention of HE, the President. This was a big blow to the corporation because the license fee indicated in the Section 14 of the Uganda Broadcasting Act would ease the corporation's financial burden. The committee observed that in the countries where the license fee has been maintained, the public broadcasters still command a considerable reach and share of the market. And this, coupled with the government funding for a mixed funding model, may just be the solution for Uganda Broadcasting Corporation's financial challenges. The committee recommends that Section 14(1)(e) of Uganda Broadcasting Act 2005 on the collection of television licenses should be enforced. Other operations of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is penalties and areas and obligations of UBC. The committee established that indeed Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is encumbered with the various areas, penalties, and delayed obligations. Documentary evidence has been severally provided to the committee to demonstrate this, with this obligation amounting to Uganda shillings 84.063 billion, broken down as follows: Uganda Revenue Authority 18.16 billion, National Social Security Fund 46.670 billion, UCC 2% levy of 146,355 million, payable to other suppliers and service providers 12.217 billion, and staff gratuity of 6.864 billion. The UBC financial shows clearly that a new financing model that is predictable, adequate, and protects the corporation from undue political and commercial pressure is required. The committee there recommends that the Attorney General should provide an opinion on the legal status of Signet, which will further facilitate the process of waiving of UBC financial obligation with the Uganda Revenue Authority amounting to 2.41 billion. Ministry of Finance and Economic Development should provide for sustainable funding, including but not limited to the provision of vote status. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should clear UBC outstanding financial obligations in order to wipe out its debt and allow it to resume a clear and firm financial footing. The Ministry of ICT and National Guidance should provide a subvention to cater for at least half of the salaries of UBC staff and all other utility bills in order to reduce the pressure of administrative costs and corporations' finance, as well as its ability to invest meaningfully in the content generation. Amendment of UBC Act. The committee observed that UBC Act 2005 specified the source of funding for the corporation, of which the following area need amendment. Section 14(1)(a) of the Act provides for any grant of capital nature from government. This section needs to be amended to take into consideration the recurrent expenditure which consumes a lot of corporations' insufficient funding. The committee therefore recommends that UBC Act be established a predictable and adequate public financing mechanism to support UBC a long-term planning and align the Act with the policy. In conclusion, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, centrally, the centrality of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation to provision of information to Ugandans through radio and television communication technology cannot be underestimated. Despite the presence of other technologies such as internet, the simplicity of radio and television remains the easiest, cheapest, and most readily available form of communication for most Ugandans. However, government commitment to UBC has over time been piecemeal, with a little efforts to guarantee secure and predictable funding, which allows medium and long-term planning. The national broadcaster is challenged in securing its independence and to remain relevant in the eyes of the public, thereby not inspiring much confidence. Clearly, UBC is a state-owned broadcaster, but it is ill-equipped to survive in a competitive business environment. Further still, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, given that most of the remote parts of the country are not serviced by private media sector and can only be accessed by the national broadcaster, government thus has the responsibility to ensure that all its citizens have access to information which can only be provided by the national broadcaster. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, I beg to report. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, and I want to thank and recognize members of the committee for great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Tony. Let's debate this for 30 minutes. Okay. I'll start with Honorable Ssemujju. I add...
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Turo, followed by Bungoko, followed by Angura, followed by Honorable Abe. Then I come here. We can use 3 minutes each, Honorable colleague.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in 2004, I was a minister responsible for information and broadcasting, and I had the privilege of merging Radio Uganda with Uganda Television. And that gave us Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. The idea was that Uganda should move away from what we were having.
What's the point of procedure, Honorable Enos?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was wondering if we could also get the report on item number 6 so that we debate them at once, because they all relate to UBC, Mr. Speaker.
Well, sounds a good proposal, but Mr. Chairman, I had talked to your colleague and we had agreed on how to handle that item. Maybe we can have a quick one.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and
Honorable
members.
colleagues, I think that's appropriate so that we do it at once.
Right Honorable Speaker, I think it would be appropriate that we handle them at once. because the item there is very small and it is straightforward.
So you, please.
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, I wish to present the report of the Committee on Information, Communication Technology and National Guidance on the petition by the National Association of Broadcasters against the Presidential Directive of Government Advertisements exclusively through Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. Right Honorable Speaker, I wish to lay on table the minutes and the report we use for processing the recommendations. I beg to lay. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, His Excellency the President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, in a letter dated 6 March 2023 under the subject Right Honorable Speaker, I beg for your protection from Honorable Ssemujju.
I haven't seen him attacking you, so just keep focused. It's you focusing on him instead.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda.
Tibuhaburwa for the record. Okay? Yeah. Please go on, Honorable Ayo. Oh, I've said go on and then you said.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Under
Okay.
issues at Uganda.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, as far as I know, Mr. Yoweri Museveni denounced his name under the law in Uganda and adopted a new name ending with Tibuhaburwa. So his name changed by that process. Is the chairperson of the committee in order to refer to Mr. Tibuhaburwa by his old name that he denounced and even went to the Gazette?
I think on Hon Ssemujju, you should have helped him also to clear these are the real names. Please. So do it in an orderly manner, Honorable Ayo.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. His Excellency the President, under the subject issued at Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, addressed to Right Honorable Robin Nabanja, the Prime Minister of Uganda, directing entirely that all government advertisement must be through the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, and any official who disregards the directive would have punitive measures taken against them. This was a response to an appeal from Mr. Agaba Wilston, the Managing Director of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, about the underfunding of Uganda Corporation by government, denial of advertisement by accounting officers, the need to pay penalties and delays for their contribution to National Social Security Fund and pay as you earn, and the need to replace the now old and obsolete equipment at UBC. In response to the said letter, on 12 of April 2024, the Right Honorable Prime Minister wrote to all ministries asking the aid of public service and the Secretary to Cabinet to ensure that accounting officers fully comply with the directive, or else have punitive measures taken against them, including dismissal from the public service. This directive caused the National Association of Broadcasters, NAB, on behalf of the private media broadcasters to write to the Right Honorable Prime Minister with a complaint that the directive by the President excludes the private sector media players, yet these have in the past and still to date support various government projects and campaigns, including the COVID-19, Ebola, Myoga, and the current Paris development model through awareness creation and sensitization. National Association of Broadcasters sought to have the implementation of the directive altered so that the concerns of the private sector media players are addressed.
Can we do 6.0? 6.0.
Right Honorable Speaker, on 6.0, rescission of the directive by the President. Before reporting the findings and recommendation of the committee, the State Minister for Information, Communication Technology and National Guidance, in the subsequent meeting, informed the committee that the President had rescinded the directive. The committee formally sought confirmation and details of the rescission of the directive by HE the President from the Right Honorable Prime Minister. However, this response was not provided to the committee. In the premise where the committee did not get formal communication from the Right Honorable Prime Minister, we found it challenging proceeding with the making findings and recommendations on the subject of the petition. In light of the above, the committee therefore recommends that the Right Honorable Prime Minister provide Parliament and the nation with the details on the rescission, and further still, our government resolved on the financial flight of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to report. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the issue was very clear, okay? These issues of the pride of UBC, they were not part of what we wanted you to do. Because the petition had very specific prayers, which were the government should rescind the decision, which was done. So what we can ask for is for the minister to bring proof here that indeed they wrote rescinding the decision that had been made. Thank you, Chair. So, yes, I had picked those to speak. We are going to handle both at once. Honorable Ssemujju, resume the floor.
Mr. Speaker, the intention of having Uganda Broadcasting Corporation was simply for Uganda to do what other countries had done. In Kenya, we had Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, South Africa, the same, BBC, and so on. And we found it sensible that a nation that is serious, that cares about its sovereignty, its desire to have national values completely defended and popularized among the population, were so urgent that Uganda Broadcasting Corporation was going to do just that, to become a national broadcaster. The challenge we saw at the time was that many of my colleagues hardly understood what it meant having a national voice that defends your interests, that promotes your values. There was a problem there. To the extent that when I introduced a TV tax, the purpose then was that we really generate enough revenue for Uganda Broadcasting Corporation to do their work. Again, I met the opposition there, and partly because many of us at the time hardly understood the importance of having a national voice. When you're a nation that aspires to be sovereign, you're not going to depend on others to speak for you, to promote your interests. You must have your own voice. And Uganda Broadcasting Corporation was seen in that light. That is why, Mr. Speaker, the idea that one equates a national broadcaster with other but private TV stations, radio stations, is not being ingenuous at all. The idea must be, just like you and I have our interests, which may not necessarily be interests of your friends and others, you must find a way that helps you to articulate, defend, promote your interests. Uganda Broadcasting Corporation was seen in that light. Unfortunately, over the years, and Mr. Speaker, I must say, just listening to the chairman, one would think it's my statement in 2005 that he has copied. I'm not suggesting he really has, but it's similar. Same points, urging government to give support to Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. for purposes of defending our interests as a nation. I do commend the chairman's statement, but very sad I must say I am, that 20 years later, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is still having the same problems. A reflection of how unserious we are as a people, that really we must be allowing others to speak for us. I would not hesitate, Mr. Speaker, to say that because Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is a national carrier, a national broadcaster, it would be wrong to compare Uganda Broadcasting Corporation with other similar entities that are private. I therefore would want to commend the chair, but also urge government to get out of the complacency I see we are in and allow UBC to be given resources that allows her to continue serving this nation ably. The issue of funding, Mr. Speaker, is so critical. And anyone who determines how serious we are as a nation will have to look at our national voice and how supportive we are of it. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Nsababuturo. Mungoko.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the chair and the committee for the report about the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. I pick my interest on the issues of land and protection of the land that belongs to the corporation. And specifically, I go to the FRV 208 F8, the land in Kololo, which is under contention, yet in the report says the corporation has a title. And at the same time, Uganda UTL also has a title. So it brings many questions over that, because the original title takes precedence. How did Uganda Telecommunication Limited come to have a title where the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation had a title? Was it a special certificate of title? Is it a leasehold? And if it's a leasehold, we are the processes of getting a leasehold from the freehold handled, and who handled it? Is it a mutation? Was it given officially? So those are the questions that didn't come out clearly to understand where the conflict of the land issues came about. And Right Honorable Speaker, when it comes to the issues of protecting the land, we have a peak interest from the land which is in Namatala, which is in Mbale City. As we enter Mbale City, it is the vast and very prime land, and it is open, and therefore subject and an attraction to grabbing, which is a very serious asset that could have been protected to ensure that the corporation has an asset which could either be invested in to ensure to bring it about better resources that we are talking about. And finally, Right Honorable Speaker, when we talk about the issue being run down, the UBC being run down, the state of studios and site brings many questions. And in the fact that many other broadcasters are coming up and showing the potential in the field, we either choose to capitalize and put money in UBC, or the government changes the strategy of doing business so that UBC is favorably competes with others by either making money as a company and then the proceeds come back to the people, or either way. But otherwise, it is a lamentation to this far, given the fact that even the recommendations that were made by the review commission have not come to pass, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I think, Honorable colleagues, it's very important that it's very important that even when we support UBC, we should give it performance targets. Because you can't go at UBC and they give you a free advert. You can't run there anything for free, even including government agencies, you pay. Okay? So if it is competing, and we can put in money as a way of investing, but we demand they perform. Okay? Yeah, I had allowed Honorable Angula.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I also want to thank the Chair and the committee for the report that they have presented. And just speaking from what Honorable has said about land, Right Honorable Speaker, I am also aware that the land in Mbale had been occupied by veterans. And you know how difficult it is to evacuate veterans when they come in. So how I wish that moves in very fast. But Right Honorable Speaker, we really need to put our foot firm on the ground. The $1 million that has been outstanding for a long time, I think that deprives this country of the opportunity that would be getting from this broadcaster serving our people. Right Honorable Speaker, for us in the East, we have known a Radio Butebo for a very long time. And all the men keep all the time searching and asking if they can still tap onto Radio Butebo. So the 17 up-country stations that are not running are still depriving many of our people the good opportunities that government has offered and are known in the past. For us who come from the East, and especially me, along kilometer 0 and across the other side, KBC, which broadcasts from very far, is one of the darling stations that we have to tune in. And for any sensitive government information, it is always broken by those official stations. So, and I think that is where what Honorable Sababturo said is very, very important, and we need to come in. I want to appreciate the Chair and the committee. When they talked about getting decoders that are cheap, that would be an opportunity for us to also create a competition with the DSTV that when you ask what their corporate social responsibility is, you don't see anything. So let's support UBC such that we can get those cheap decoders and our people can view many channels that are associated with that. You've also talked about recommendations by the review committee. I may not be surprised since those recommendations have not been implemented to date. Maybe they are supporting other private entities now that are running. As you know, how government always generates good ideas and they end up going to other players. So I want to thank the committee and request that this House takes a stand, supports government in whichever way such that we can fund the activities of our broadcasters. I thank you very much.
On decoders, Chair, did you mean that we have specific UBC decoders, or UBC goes into a business of also being a carrier for other stations?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The moment we are connected to satellite, then under Direct to Home program of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC is supposed to have a system that runs through our own decoders. So we are going to allow citizens to buy a decoder and disc. Only once, you pay it off once, then you view. That's what we want to go to.
Specifically for UBC?
For UBC, but we'll also run other channels, because even NBS, all these other the private television network in the country, their signal is transmitted or carried by Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. So that would only be, the signal is carried by Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. So having the decoder, that would mean even their channels would be viewed through UBC. But sometimes you find the quality of our pictures are squeezed when you see it through this other television, when they are transmitting like DSTV. They squeeze the quality of the picture of UBC, but here would be...
They reduce.
No, they kind of compress, and then you see the quality of the pictures are not very good.
Squeezing is too tough. Eh?
Yes, squeezing is a hard. But also, Right Honorable Speaker, at the same time, these other televisions were supposed to allow Uganda view other channels, including like NBS, NTV. Even when your subscription on DSTV is off, you are supposed to view them free, just like UBC. But you find it's only UBC that they leave. The rest, they stop Ugandans from viewing. So once it's on our decoder, then people are able to view most of these channels and be able to
Okay.
Thank you.
So because, Chairman, this is something you would deeply look into when you are like assessing the Ministerial Policy statement. Yeah? Not just that, because it's a business case. This is it's a serious business. You need to interrogate deeply and see its viability commercially before we say give the money for this. Something you need to look at.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I want to thank Chair and the committee for doing a good work. They have thoroughly done us justice. And to pick on his point, the perspective of business, we need to pilot it. It is risky to invest money wholesomely on that suggestion. Because, Right Honourable Speaker, UBC is watched widely by the local man down there who cannot afford to pay for DSTV. And indeed is doing a good job. Of course, I have issue with quality. And with media houses, this is a laissez-faire, economy. People are looking at news is something, news or entertainment, you'll go for the quality that suits you. Right, Honourable Speaker, I have a problem with how we also run our government entities. We run it in a laissez-faire way. We don't look at the business, perspective. I do support the need to support UBC and make it run and put it to a level that is quality. But we also need the leadership, we need the administration to run UBC as business that brings money to government. So that when we invest, we see where the money goes. And this is across board, not only with UBC. So if you are to make a choice today that what media house are you going to tune in first, everyone will go for NBS because it is having all the quality pictures, is bringing you organized things and entertainment, news and all this. So we need to also insist on having quality and proper administration of these entities. Otherwise, investing money, government taxpayers' money being put and we don't see the result is also not right for us. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable colleagues, in the public gallery this afternoon, we have Dr. James Henry Lalobo, a healthcare practitioner specializing as an obstetrician and gynecologist. He's here to observe proceedings of this House. Please join me in welcoming him. Doctor, you can stand up for recognition. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Omara, Honorable Migade. I'm looking at the side of independence now. I've picked NRM, I'm going to independence. So, but I'm trying to get a lady among independents. Okay? Yeah. Honorable Katuntu. And then there's one who is an independent by association in terms of how she's seated. Honorable Bigger Rose, as I come to opposition side. I'm going to pick more here to balance off. Yes.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. I just want to thank the chairman for the great submission which they have made. And I just want to re-echo what Honourable Lilian Aber has said. Right Honourable Speaker, the chairman, while making a presentation of recommendations, provided a litany of investment plans. Given the situation where we are in, Chair, I would suggest that we prioritize those investments and we stagger them over a period of time. It is a fact that the equipments that they have are old-fashioned and they're completely outdated technology compared to the private sector entities. Right Honourable Speaker, what the committee did not give us is the level of viewership. And in the world of digital technology, you can easily find this one out. And based on the submission by Honourable Bulturo, that it is important to have a national broadcaster. Right Honourable Speaker, it's important for us to know how many people actually spend their time looking at UBC news and other programs. So I think going forward, we really need to come up with these numbers to justify the level of investments that we are doing. Right Honourable Speaker, the chairman talked about one very important thing, about the determination of editorial policy and product content. I think this is where the problem is. Because we need to run this, Mr. Speaker, as you've said, as a business case. We need to look at profitability and the sense of competitiveness, and therefore determination of editorial policy and product content should be given to the management of UBC, and less of government interference, so that the investment over time can be realized, so that we can attract more people to be watching UBC. So, Mr. Chairman, I support the recommendations of the chairman and his committee, and we will look into the budget proposal so that we can support greater investment in UBC. I submit, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Megade.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. And I want to add my voice in thanking the chair. Right Honourable Speaker, I draw my attention to page 8 of the chair's report as far as land belonging to UBC is concerned. Many government institutions, of course, have lost land, but it's even worse when government institutions are losing land to other government institutions. And my interest is the chair indicated that UBC's land on Kololo Summit View is encroached on by not only the other private players, but the UPDF. And also indicate that for UBC has to seek for permission from UPDF to access their premises. So this is quite unusual, and that's why, Right Honourable Speaker, I'm concerned. And my interest is whether the committee was also able to interact with the encroachers. And Right Honourable Speaker, you are aware the other side we are also facing the same problem as the circle. And the Honourable Bangura also mentioned that in the East it is the veterans. So that's where my interest is. Was the committee able to interact with the purported encroacher? And if so, how are we going to help UPDF get off this land? Because other entities would employ private security to protect their land. And now here, when the land is encroached on by UPDF, you can't employ the police to protect this same land. So how are we going to help this institution safeguard their land? That's my issue, Right Honourable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair will respond to that. Honourable Bigaros, Honourable Katuntu.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I join the rest in thanking the chair. Right Honourable Speaker, in my lifetime, all as a village girl, I only knew about Radio Uganda. And if you go down in most of our villages, the signals of Radio Uganda are perfect, because the rest do not reach in most rural and remote areas. And therefore, I support the chair on the recommendation that we should be able to give resources to Radio Uganda, even for education purposes, because the rates they charge are lower and better for the most vulnerable. Again, I would like to challenge the committee on the issue of post office. Post office is losing a lot of land like radio, UBC radio, and this is under ICT. I've independently tried to alert the chair, but I see he's sitting and sleeping on job. And I don't know whether until after we have lost everything of post office, that's when he intends to think about the buses and the land and other properties. So therefore, as you are doing good work for UBC radio, don't forget about post office. Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Katuntu.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I don't want to spoil the party. If there is anything that can go wrong in any management of a company, has gone wrong in UBC. And don't shy away from it. It doesn't pay gratuity. It doesn't pay NSSF. All its land is being taken. There is nothing that is going correctly in the UBC. And don't run away from it. I have been chairperson of the Committee on Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises. And UBC was one of them. You remember one time we did recover land. You remember the famous goat story? Land in Mbuya of millions and millions of dollars that had been stolen. And this has been going on. If you want taxpayers to invest money, colleagues, where is the return on investment? Because let's speak like a shareholders. Because this is our money we are putting in a national broadcaster. The Honorable Ssemujju says it was during his tenure that he merged Radio Uganda and UTV. What was the purpose? It's not exactly what he was saying. He fell short. The purpose was to run UBC as a business, like to compete in the modern times. That was one of the purposes. Let us look at the viewership today. Has the viewership of UBC increased or decreased? Let us look at all these, colleagues. Right Honourable Speaker, the point I'm making, the minister responsible of the sector, the board of directors, and the management should up their act. Otherwise, this is money down the drain. Let us look at the editorial policy. What attracts anybody to watch UBC today? Why? Because it becomes propaganda. And Honorable Ssemujju, let me tell you, one of the most profitable enterprises today is BBC. Why? It runs both as a national asset but also in the business world. Because if you don't have that in mind, then nobody is going to watch UBC, nobody is going to listen to Radio Uganda. Because it will be a propaganda forum. Right Honourable Speaker, I really beg the people responsible for the management of this UBC, the corporate, really to change or to up their act. Right Honourable Speaker, when it was Radio Uganda, it was a small department, a means of information. And you make it a corporate. Does it have a corporate culture today? Does it? Seriously? Do we see people, Right Honourable Speaker? Do we see managers who are running that institution as a corporate? Or it has remained the culture of Radio Uganda, in the culture of UTV? Right Honourable Speaker, as I conclude, as we invest money, and indeed we should, we need to demand a return on our investment. Because the world has changed. There is nothing changing at UBC. You go there and see. If you cannot even pay gratuity, you don't pay URA, the land is going. You know, including salaries actually. They can't even pay salaries of the employees. And you are saying, let's bring money. Bring money. Money for what? What is the return on our money we are investing in UBC? That's what I want to see. Then I'll be comfortable saying, okay, we need to invest more. This is not a bottomless pit where we just put money. No wonder government is now talking about a policy of rationalization, including abolishing agencies that don't make economic sense. That is one of the reasons. Right Honourable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Now, Honourable colleagues and Honourable Chair, I think that's what I had touched on earlier. I had expected your committee to do a serious assessment of UBC. Okay? Looking at their performance. Looking at their performance, you give us the viewership. Because now the question will be, what will be the incentive for UBC management to work hard when they can come here and we just appropriate money? What would be your incentive to burn the midnight candle like other stations, to be creative, you know? But also we have to be very cautious when we are doing our recommendations, honorable colleagues, honorable chairs. And I think this is an issue which cracks should be looking at. We should be very cautious on talking about money which we have not appropriated here. It is not good for Parliament to resolve that government to go and bring a supplementary for so and so. Then how will you scrutinize that supplementary once it's brought, yet you're the ones who asked for it? You already judged that it's needed. Okay? So it's very, very critical will be, but most importantly, even if you give all amounts of money, if you don't want to move with the changing times, you will be putting in money when you don't have viewership. A very good example, Chairman, you need to ask Ipsos. They are the ones who usually have statistics for all these entities. When you're going to MTN to ask for an advert, they will ask for viewership. If I put here my money, how much will I get back? Okay? And if they find you don't have viewers, they won't. So we need to see a way of supporting UBC also. We be hard so that they start running as a business. Okay? Honorable Aisha Kawanda, Honorable Ssemujju, Honorable Yusuf Nsibambi, Honorable Taringa, and Honorable Nsereko.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, first, I wish to submit to the...
Please, I'm still this side. So this side, don't even waste time standing up until I come this side. Yeah.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. First, I wish to submit to the second report. The committee says they did not get evidence that the other directive was retracted. I want to say, Right Honorable Speaker, that what the President had directed is discriminative in nature. We are into liberalization, promoting private companies. We cannot simply say we are creating another monopoly or they go through it. It is discriminative and must not be supported in any way. I'm happy to hear that the President retracted it, but we need to get evidence to that fact. Having said that, Right Honorable Speaker, even government anyway, at the way it is now, would actually not wish to advertise with UBC. Actually, what pushed government to change is that the private organizations had chosen to boycott government programs. Because UBC does not have a fellowship. That's why government put up a regulation, I know there's a regulation, for all media houses to broadcast the president by force. They broadcast the president's speeches. They are compelled to broadcast the president's communication. Just because the national broadcaster was not doing us a service. What's very important, Right Honorable Speaker, is that at this time, we must ask the minister to explain to us why they did not implement the recommendations of their committee, the review committee that was given to them in 2016. 8 years down the road, they have told you your programs are not appealing, and you are marketing something, and you don't do your best to make it better. Before even we recommend that more money should be given to them, can we know from the minister why they have refused to implement recommendations of a committee that was put in place to advise them on improving quality? At one time, I managed a media desk in State House. It was working for us to take president to private. That's how president went to Mambo Bado, because they were innovative. they thought of programs that were attractive people, and then they became very difficult for government to manage and sustain. So the president went there. What the government should have done then is to be as creative also and be attractive so that you attract the listenership. Instead, the government compels these organizations to broadcast what they are doing even when they're not attractive enough. So for me, Right Honorable Speaker, before we think of giving UBC money, can we ask them to explain to us, account to us, why they not implement the recommendations of a committee that was set to help the organization? Its problem is interference. We have continuously interfered in the operations. Shall we now commit to stop interference, restrain from making it a political organization, give Editorial the independence they deserve so that they can be able to provide what is desirable? I thank you.
Thank you. Hon Ssemujju.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. The recommendations by the committee, one of them is that we should annually be giving UBC 30 billion as directed by the President. Another one is that there was a supplementary of 24 billion, it should be released. You remember in this parliament, we even authorized the borrowing. At the time, the UBC and Uganda Television merged. If I recall, I can be corrected. But if I recall, we authorized the borrowing of up to 70 billion. Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you, the committee should have helped Parliament by looking at the audience sharing per station in Uganda. If you go to Kenya, the public broadcaster, KBC, first of all, they are dominated by Citizen at 10%. The rest of the radio stations, Kiss and so on and so forth. The private broadcaster is relegated among others. Their audience has become so minimal. You need to look at the audience sharing, because you will even be contradicting bills and acts of Parliament. Because in all the acts that we are passing here, there is a standard section, advertise in the media of wide public saturation. That's how decision is illegal now. It's not just a directive of the President. And that's why even the directive that whoever wants advert should get them through UBC was against the statutory establishment. So I like UBC having grown up listening to only one radio station. But we need to live in the time. With the exception of BBC, I think public broadcasting is dying in the world. People no longer listen. If I ask the colleagues here, who uses UBC as his main source of news? Here. You you may find one or two. But also you need to understand that the media landscape is changing. Newspapers are closing. Radio stations, the audience is going down, because now the phone that you hold in your hand has become the main source of information. So I am hesitant, Mr. Speaker. I like UBC. I want it to leave. We can even use it for other purposes. But I am hesitant to recommend as Parliament that we give them 30 billion shilling annually. We give them another 24 billion in supplementary that was not released, when the figures about these studies have not been displayed here. I would rather, and I had made the recommendation, like Honorable Katundu, I chaired the committee on COSASE at one stage, and I compared UBC with the New Vision. New Vision, before privatization, was 100% owned by government, but it was run properly. And I said, if we have trouble with UBC, why don't you just transfer it under now the rationalization and merge it with New Vision? Because even New Vision is still, the public stake in New Vision is high. we don't pass money here for New Vision. If New Vision is run properly and UBC is not run properly, just rationalize the UBC, take it to New Vision and get the good managers there to run it. Instead of recommending that you keep pumping their money. Finally, Mr. Speaker, compared to, you see, there are things that you can hide. Public broadcasting has become almost obsolete, old. It is like old people dying here to continue looking young. I was telling my neighbor here that at the age like of President Museveni, even if you die here, you will continue looking old. So public broadcasting has become obsolete and old. And we need to take a decision as Parliament. Thank you very much, UBC, for the work that you did. We retire you and then go to the new order of the digital communication. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, Honorable colleague, that's why Honorable Ssemujju took an option of removing all his hair. And take that option. Yeah. Yes, I had allowed Honorable Nsibambi.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I just want to thank the committee and the chair for the report. My next comment is about the land issue. With the coming into force of the Constitution and the Land Act, there's nothing like public land. Land belongs to the people. And repeatedly we've been talking about public land grabbing, public land. Now land is vested in the people to be managed by the district land boards, and the Ugandan Commission, the mandate has to do with administering land, titled or not titled. I was the chairman, Kampala District Land Board, and deeply involved in issues to do with managing prime land. You don't have to be bothered, because when you talk about prime land, the majority here, you have no access to prime land. So your land is secure in Mutundwe, in Rubaga. I was not managing that kind of land. I was managing land in Kololo and the Central Business District. Right, Honorable Speaker, the report to do with land in Kololo, I think you need guidance of that Attorney General. Because specifically, the land grabber actually is UBC. Because UBC was created in 2005, 2003, 2005. Yes, but this land has been there with private developers and owners since colonialism. Then you have UTL, which has shareholders, which are even foreigners, and UBC is not a shareholder. So you cannot talk of now acquiring land when you are created in 2005 and they are private developers and owners who own that piece of land. Two, the UPDF itself has a more legitimate right to that land than UBC. Why? When they came in 1986, they took over that land, which was not titled, as a strategic military point. So now, in terms of possession, they are acquiring. And Uganda Land Commission must come in to protect the user as UPDF, because it came in 1986. Then UBC coming in 2005 to acquire that land, it must be allocated or transferred, which is not the case. So, Right Honourable Speaker, this is a little bit technical. I would suggest that the Attorney General should go in to look at the three stakeholders. You have UTL, which has now shareholders which are even foreign, and they have a title prior to that one of UBC. You also have other colonial owners, and I don't want to say Asians, who actually in possession with the titles. So you either have to go and get legitimate transfer by purchase or compulsory acquisition. So I think this is not a matter which has not been properly investigated. So I beg to suggest that the committee should now involve in the Attorney General and other people who are technical enough to advise, instead of saying, you see, this land was grabbed. How can you grab land of a child born in 2005 when you existed before? That's my submission.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable colleagues. Order. You people, you don't own prime land, but now you've started with. Is it? Maybe the clarification I wanted to make to Honorable Response Bambi is that we also own prime land because government is holding it in trust for the people. Okay, so, and we are the people, so we have a stake in that. At least by extension, we own prime land.
By osmosis.
Now, the good thing, I looked at the recommendations of the Committee on Issues of Land. You know, the recommendations are not that calling so and say grabber, saying this one should go to this one. They are saying let government study and ensure it resolves issues around UBC land. Yeah. Yes, Honorable Taringaya.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I join my colleagues to thank the chairperson for the good report presented. During COVID-19, when children were required to have home studies at home, it was those remote areas where UBC penetrates. There are those few who benefited. There are several government programs that are being promoted now, PDM, ICT in schools, especially those deep rural schools. They need the services of a strong national broadcaster. However, to me, I think UBC needs to present a bankable proposal for us to benefit from us to propose financing. Why? Because in this era where we are rationalizing non-performers and a broadcaster will be giving information, but at the same time generating revenue for government. It is therefore important that they present a bankable proposal.
Honorable Mara, please. This is okay. We have a colleague holding floor. So it's not good holding another colleague to have to stand.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. It is therefore very important that UBC presents a bankable proposal not to attract annual disbursements, but rather money that will be generated from NTR that they generate themselves so that they partially support their programs. I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honorable Sereko. I need...
thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, regarding UBC and its matters, I think it's a double-edged sword. On one side, every nation needs a national broadcaster. And the purpose for creation of these national broadcasters is basically to disseminate such information that might not necessarily be carryable for profit by private players. I'll give you an example, a case in point. It's been time overdue since UBC was carrying this parliament live. And I don't remember since when we had started to pay UBC, and the figures can be brought forward. I don't know how many broadcasters can go into such a venture. But the rationale is very simple, is to support the legislative agenda by transmitting information from both committees and plenary to the most remote viewer, connectivity, and access to information. So it might not necessarily look profitable, but in the long run, the easy access to information that we debate here is not quantifiable. assuming every legislator would carry his or her own program to transmit what they submitted, whether in committees or here, you would find it highly costly. Secondly, there are very many programs that are not profitable in the short run, but in the long run are. For example, educational programs about agriculture. I can tell you there is no single sponsor that is ready for that. But that's where the national carrier must come in and buffer. I'll give you more examples. Issues of education. You can see private broadcasters cannot carry programs to do with education because the appetite for sponsors to sponsor issues of education is much less than Lugambo, rumor mongering, or musical programs, etc. Now, UBC, the difference is that it is having many stations in order to perform this. And for many languages, for connectivity, which I would not find profitable if I'm a private player, for example, to have Butebo FM, to transmit in ATESO and ETC. But UBC, under its mandate, under its act, we hold the duty of care to transfer information in languages understandable by people all over this country. Therefore, you might find it not profitable in the short run in form of money, but in the long run in form of awareness, it is quantifiable. Finally, I would like to agree with my colleagues with the digital transformation. It is true. All national broadcasters, I was looking at KBC, they have pumped money, are struggling. And the reason is very simple. There is no one that can run such a payroll. But let's come back to reality. When you are in this house, assuming one of your voters comes here and tells you it's me going to be laid off, you'll see everyone standing up in arms. Why? UBC is the only guarantor of employing, we can say, a bit redundant people. But, no, it's true. What I'm telling you is the reality. From a private point of view, there is no reason as to why you would have that number of workers. But because it's a national broadcaster, therefore national interests first, you would employ people to have Ruchiga, Runyankole, Rutoro, Ateso, every language, Swahili, so that information goes out. But a private player would say, come here if you qualify and have about 4 languages. And before you know, that is the reality that we must face. Now, finally, Right Honorable Speaker, do we want to come here as a parliament that passed a motion to adopt the resolutions of parliament in supply in the supplementary budget and say now we are overruling what we said? It's only natural justice that if there are arrears that were supposed to be paid and we pass them through a supplementary of, let's say, 24 billion, it's our obligation, the obligation of the Ministry of Finance to honor the resolution of Parliament because we supplied that. As regards coming forward, the justification must come from the committee. Like you said, how do we make it much better, profitable? UBC, how do we make you more profitable? How many rights should you reserve as a national broadcaster? It is so that we give you some level of protection. Reason being, there are some programs we know you carry that are not necessarily profitable, but desirable to the nation. Therefore, I would like to stand and support the matter. Because I know what it takes. UBC is a training ground for young journalists, and you know it. It will take in as many interns as you do not know. It will train them, it will produce them to national level for even other carriers to take on. Well, however, I would like UBC to adopt a plan that is used like other national broadcasters, being the innovation center to host all of them. Because if I have Radio Toro, for example, if it were mine and it's an FM, instead of creating offices in Kampala, I would create studios at UBC. It carries me through its signal, and I pay them what we call loyalties for carrying me. That's what other broadcasters have adopted. That if you have the leverage of getting national funds, How do you also carry the private players so that you help them grow? Should everyone start up an office or a broadcasting studio in the city? How do we help them so that it's quid pro quo? You take taxpayers' money, but you also have a buffer. Finally, the collection of Signet, the funds, the Signet fund. With the arrival of other players like, let's say, Star Times, you can imagine how much money Star Times collects. If that leverage was given to UBC through NTR, UBC would not be here. Because every single person, and you can talk about the figures they have, assuming they have about 3 million people, and they collect about minimum, on average every month, $1 from every person. That is $3 million from every user, That's $3 million. And in a year, that's 3 million times 12 is about 36, probably. That's a lot of money. If you gave that leverage, like other countries protected their national carriers, to be the ones to provide the single source of outlet of content, it would definitely be profitable. But now as a carrier, it is not independent. I mean, it's not the single player, it's not protected. And also, if it was to collect from individual radios and TVs, the Signet fees, it is better you go to Star Times that takes you nearly freely than go to UBC. But UBC has the sole aim to deliver the desires and aspirations of Ugandans, no matter what. Even if it's not profitable, we should make sure we only leverage by reducing the wage bill and improving the products. But for the areas that are there, it must pay, and it's what we appropriated through the supplementary budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's a wonderful celebration, Honorable Nsereko. And I think it's in line with what colleagues were saying, because colleagues are saying, we are giving you this money, but we need performance indicators. Because you see, in the end, if you're saying, I'm only carrying desirable programs, when you no longer have viewership, who is going to view? Okay? Yes, if you don't have viewership, who will view those desirable programs? So you must strike a balance. You transmit desirable programs, but you also maintain viewership so that you have people viewing those programs. Otherwise, you will just get money for the sake of it. Okay? Yes, I need Honorable Santa, Honorable Christian, and then Chiboga. Anifa, and Chiboga. I will need the doctor on nodding disease. I need that.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Allow me join my colleagues in thanking the committee for coming with a very good report. Mr. Speaker, UBC is a national and public broadcaster. And one wonders why, with all is a state-owned, then one wonders why the viewership and then the listeners are extremely few. At one point, I was listening to the Radio Uganda, and there were only 2 callers after that, the topic that was being presented on the radio. Mr. Speaker, this sounds that there is something which is terribly wrong with UBC. And I would like to urge the chair to really try to go back and deeper, as you call for this Parliament and the Ministry of Finance to allocate money. If money is allocated, and at the end of it all, only 2 listeners or viewers, then what is the importance and the rationale of this whole Parliament allocating money? Mr. Speaker, this is not to underscore the importance.
But I hope you also, who was in the studio, you are also listening. At least you were 3.
Thank you for that correction. No, we were 3. But Right Honorable Speaker, this is not to underscore the importance of UBC. Honorable Ssemujju talked about the world moving very fast and everything are found on smartphones. But Mr. Speaker, when you go down to the villages where we have the majority of women Most of the women don't have these smartphones. And this means that if we don't have a national broadcaster like UBC and Radio Uganda, how will the majority of these very poor people in the remote areas get the information? Most of the government information, call it education, call it parish development, call it what? Even not propaganda, please. They can be found through a national carrier like UBC. When I was young, Mr. Speaker, at around, I still remember, I think 7 or 7:30, that was the time for news. Everybody would be listening to the information and receiving it at the same time. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the committee made recommendation that there is need to have a vibrant human resource. I think the problem with UBC is management. If we don't correct this problem, then we are not going to see the light of what we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, the review committee mentioned some of the challenges. One of them was that the board and management flouted best practices in corporate governance by working without a strategic plan. 2, that there was lack of editorial policy. Mr. Speaker, even as politicians, we always have strategic plans. Even government, even at a household level, people have strategic plans. Even the slightest things that you have to do, you need a strategic plan. So for me, I think the problem is that we lack management, and we need to have a serious human resource if the maximum potential of UBC is supposed to be realized at the end of the day. And finally, about the presidential directive, I think we should allow the private broadcasters to also blossom alongside supporting the Uganda national broadcaster. I want to thank you, and the minister, please come and clarify on this.
Thank you.
Was made.
Now, honorable colleagues, I think we all watch UBC. Yeah, because me, I watch UBC. I watch UBC at 8. I'm always watching UBC, and I've been watching Honorable Mara also doing a fantastic job on UBC. I've seen Honorable Ssemujju on UBC. I know our president is an ardent fan of UBC. So let's start with us. Let it start with us, okay? And we watch UBC. Honorable Anifa.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Chair and the committee for the report. Chair, my concern is about cases of UBC that are in court under mediations. I don't know whether you are familiar with those cases, but most of those cases are about land boundaries between UBC and the owners of the land, that the settlers that are already there. Then others are 2 titles on the same land. But then I want to recommend, in addition to your recommendation that you are going to open boundaries and demarcations to know where UBC is. But there's what they call a cadastral sheet, a map, which surveyors use, and most of these government entities like Uganda Land Commission, they do not have or do not use cadastral maps to do the boundaries. So UBC should take this initiative to get cadastral maps such that by the time they go to the ground, they know where they belong, to avoid these cases and embarrassments. Thank you so much.
Chiboga.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My issue goes to the independence of UBC. Even to some of us as we enter, there are some sheepish smiles, as if certain sides don't need to present certain issues on some of the media houses in there. So the issue of independence is very important. Right Honorable Speaker, we need also to conduct an exhibition on UBC, especially as far as employment is concerned. It is as if it is a depository of some unskilled people. We need to interrogate and see, is the workforce able to bring the media house to competition, to the current competition? Because as if they are not motivated even to compete just because their salaries are assured. We need to build this in the amongst the staff, but also to identify some competitive staff. It is rare that somebody is leaving NBS and is going to serve at UBC. It is the other way around all the time, meaning that I think the services there have to be low. And then this mentality of watching UBC because you are poor, because you are afraid to get money to subscribe. And even some people when they find others watching UBC news, like, oh, did the subscription get expired? Yes, that is when they watch UBC. You see, some of those thoughts need to come off our people, that you can watch UBC when you are really interested. And so we have to get updated on, for example, look at the Women's Day. What is our main broadcasting service bringing to us? How is it attractive to our women? We need to be updated. But, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of the business plan must be tabled. We must see when we are to, for example, leave the broadcasting service to its independence economically. Right Honourable Speaker, how can we help out such an entity and we don't know whether it will be sustained, whether it is going to make profit for what? Right Honourable Speaker, that is very important. Otherwise, that is why even members do not feel motivated to allocate a budget to it, just because we're like, till death do us apart, you die, you leave UBC. No, there must be a business plan showing us how they are going to earn profit and how they are going to use the profit to improve performance. Otherwise, as a country, let's come up clearly and decide that we must maintain this broadcast.
Thank you. Issues of perception, I think you've had it properly. But for clarification, UBC attracts some, Mr. Maurice Mugisha is one of the best talents who had to leave a very successful private entity in NTV, and he crossed over to UBC so that he can attract some of the best talent. It's Honorable Tungo, then Honorable Teira, then Honorable Wanzara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Right Honorable Speaker, I just want to give an opinion, Right Honorable Speaker. You had Honorable Katuntu, who was the chairman of the committee, and the Honorable Ssemujju. I used to be with them on the committee, and I'm still on the committee. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, Auditor General.
That's a committee on COSASE.
Yes, Auditor General is a staff of this Parliament. And the Auditor General has made a report on the financial statement and other issues concerning UBC. And in the findings, he was making comments on the financial statements, on management issues, on board issues, on land issues, on human resource issues, and the Auditor General made recommendations. So I just wanted to inquire from the committee whether you got an opportunity to read the Auditor General's report and the recommendations. Because, Right Honorable Speaker, at the end of the day, we may have two conflicting reports. The COSASE report may talk something different, while this report is also talking something different. So I just wanted to inquire from the chairperson whether you got an opportunity to read through the Auditor General's report and see if it can add value on your report, so that we avoid two conflicting reports from the same Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, honorable colleagues, you see we are going to be handling ministerial policy statements. Issues to do with financing and all that will be interrogated at that level. That's why you will be making a business case. We are putting in this much for this. We are now not at appropriation. Ours are general principles in support of UBC. That's what I'm picking from the committee. Okay? So we have to be very cautious on the ones which are financial. making a commitment now. Indeed, like a colleague has said, we are processing the Auditor General's report on UBC, and then you find we are contradicting each other. So reports of this nature, we have to walk a very thin line so that we don't end up contradicting each other with resolutions of Parliament. Honorable Taylor.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, one of the recommendations made by the committee is the issue that relates to encroachment, and we have a government entity that is being put on record as having encroached. Right Honorable Speaker, it baffles me, especially where we have two arms of government or two entities of the same government not being in a position to resolve issues that relate to things like land, when we have a central office, which is the office of the Prime Minister. These are matters which should not be appearing under recommendations time and again. That ought to be discussed and resolved at a policy level probably, or at executive level, so that we avoid coming out in the limelight as if we are a disintegrated government. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Noah.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the committee. Right Honorable Speaker, I entirely say that people view UBC. Even now, our voters are viewing UBC to see the parliamentary proceedings. So I want to say that it is important to fund UBC. Mr. Speaker, UBC is bleeding internally, to my understanding, and according to what I've been sharing with UBC officials and the Ministry of ICT. I want to cite an example, Right Honorable Speaker, where a UBC radio branch in Nakasongola, that is UBC Buruli, which is sharing a transmitter with a private radio, that is Salt FM. That signifies that, of course, UBC radio has no money. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you go to UBC studios, some of them you find the consoles. A console is one of the sensitive machines which are important in the radio, but you find substandard consoles which are used by these Kadongo Kamu people, those artists. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important to fund UBC so that our people can really utilize it. Only that we have to see how we can see the management of the radio, how do we bring it back on board so that the viewers, the number of viewers can be increased. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Leader of Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to thank the chair of the committee for the report, but let me commence with the petition on UBC and the directive by the President giving exclusive advertising rights to UBC. That in and of itself was an absolute infringement of Article 21 of our Constitution. It was unconstitutional. And Mr. Speaker, it is common with our President's directives, which are very unconstitutional and they become extremely difficult to enforce compliance. That aside, the operation is and the performance of UBC in the first report. Mr. Speaker, Kiswahili is the lingua franca of East Africa. And by the way, this is a language, local language that is spoken by over 2 million people. And I happen to host a number of friends and relatives from Tanzania, but particularly Kenya. And the only TV that I tune on for them to, which broadcasts Kiswahili, is the UBC. But Mr. Speaker, This UBC of recent has stopped attracting and retaining talent. It has become a serious hunting ground for the private media houses. Why? Because of the reluctance to implement the recommendations by the review committee. This review committee, which was headed by a renowned media practitioner, professional, Dr. Peter Mwesige, was a very good report. For instance, on issues of remuneration, if they were implemented, UBC would not be a hunting ground for private media practitioners. I realized recently when I engaged with a number of colleagues who were working there before, and the reason is why they shifted, one of whom is my superior, the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Ssemujju, and another who was there before joining NTV is my human member. That's when I realized that UBC has actually become a shadow of its former glory. And I would concur with the recommendation is to do everything possible to have it revamped. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Yeah, information.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my boss for allowing me to take my information. Mr. Speaker, this UBC has a lot of assets. And if we recall, most of these news stations got most of the music, articles, films, and what from UBC. The one thing we have to do, how do we safeguard all those interests into this UBC? Secondly, the archives of UBC are very strong if they were not played with. But even then, why was Impoma constructed at that time during Amini's regime? It was in the interest of UBC. All their assets have been shared by different entities. You have to strengthen them. I was teaching at Shimoni. I know what was happening at UBC. When the Revolutionary father, the late, was working there. And many parents, the employment there, go to the management issues of UBC. Carry out your forensic audit on UBC. You will see that it can generate funds. Yes, you are giving them adverts, but you as members of parliament, when you are invited for programs, do you go there? Give it attention, because you need it. Historically, it is known that you could overthrow government militarily by taking parliament, UBC, and the State House. That's what used to happen during those days. Of course, now I don't know what the cost takes out on. So, it can be and see the same story once things happen like that. But for me, I believe majority presenters, people who have got strong jobs on the new media houses, majority of them came from UBC. We need to protect and give sanctity to those things of the country, items, assets of the country, entities that have been there, but we as parliament, we come out to protect them. Look at those young ladies. From where you watch UBC by them, Mr. Speaker. Actually, how do you sign contracts when you are bringing these powerhouses, DSTV and others? UBC would be having a right, because they are using its mask, to run some of these games live. When they are African games, I remember recently when they were African Cup of Nations will not be there, but UBC could present them. They were having all those rights. The management issues are the ones affecting this entity. Lastly, here we are in a political system, we are in a political dispensation. These people want a fair coverage. I was talking to Hon Ssemujju, has just gone out here. He said, when I go there, I hit hard government. Open that, because the debate is between an NRM member, FDC, nationality platform. But once they work under fear and duress, they cannot produce good work for you. But me, I believe that we as a parliament, the assets there, the training from that entity there, can be very productive if we give it attention. But I beseech you and employee members of parliament, also be there. But once you are invited, you start giving excuses. I'm not going to be around. Be there and attend those programs and enjoy. Because even here outside, they cover us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, Honourable Minister, you won't need to, the question for you were really few. Okay? Yeah, you just need to make a few clarifications. Okay? Especially the issue of signet. The issue of signet. Now, people up country they don't access UBC. And at least even if it would be denied the people, and it's DSTV is accessible. I think we also had a program with the Chinese government where start times is in villages now. Okay? Then UBC, how do we support UBC? But signet, people who want to access free to air up country. We've talked about this issue. Very small money. Honourable Minister, please, kindly, Honourable Minister, make clarifications.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. I would also like to thank the committee for a very wonderful report. And I would also like to thank the members, the honourable members, for very good deliberations. I think I will start with the second petition, which is brief. It's true, we got a directive of the President through the Right Honourable Prime Minister. And later, we again got another communication from the Prime Minister informing us that following several consultations with all stakeholders, the directive had been rescinded. Right Honourable Speaker, I would like to lay the letter from the Right Honourable Prime Minister on table so that this issue can be settled.
Honourable Minister, kindly, you've laid. Can you read the title of the letter, the subject matter?
The letter is addressed to all ministers and ministers of state, and the title is Rescinding Government's Decision on solely advertised through Uganda Broadcasting Corporation.
Date?
It's dated on 15th August 2023.
Thank you. Now, Honourable Minister, I will request you next time you provide full cooperation to your Committee of Parliament, because the report shows as if you didn't cooperate with your sectoral committee, which is not good for our records.
Right Honourable Speaker, by the time I interacted with the committee, I didn't have the hard copy of the letter. So I would like to apologize. But now I have. Yeah, Right Honourable Speaker, the comments from honourable members of parliament were very good, but let me, Right Honourable Sereko, I think brought out what UBC is all about. It's about information dissemination. And some of the information are not profitable to the private media houses. And therefore, for us, we are still even disseminating that. Right Honourable Speaker, that we are broadcasting in 49 languages. And we have 11 radio stations and 4 TV stations. So there isn't any media house that can broadcast in 49 languages. Some of the radio stations are not breaking even, but we must disseminate information and we must maintain them. I agree that we might be having a bit of management issues with UBC, and we are tackling that. We have also, we interacted with the committee, and we promised to tackle the management issues. So recently, we had the opportunity to put in place a new board, and we started with that. We are going to even strengthen it more. On Signet, Right Honorable Speaker, we are handling matters of Signet, and very soon we are going to interact with the committee to tell them how we are going to sort out the issue of Signet. But at the moment, Signet is being run by UBC. It's a company, but being run by UBC. So we would like to see whether it can be a bit semi-autonomous as a company, so that because it is generating money, and some of the money which is generating is now what is financing operations of UBC. So we are looking for a way how it can be a bit semi-autonomous, so that it can strengthen our signals. But also, it's important to note, honourable members, that some of the equipment at UBC are obsolete. Some of the equipment. So sometimes when you see our things not moving well, it's because of obsolete equipment. The digital world now has gone, the media world has now gone digital, but we are still having some of the equipment which is manual, and we are getting challenges. That's why we are appealing to Parliament that please invest more in UBC. If you want to demand for results, then give us money so that we can invest in UBC, and then you demand for results. But otherwise, if we leave UBC as it is with those meager resources, we cannot produce the quality that you want. It's good you have recognized that people are coming from UBC to other stations. Probably then UBC is a good training ground. Why should other TV stations source from UBC? That one we should be proud of, that we are really training manpower that is becoming marketable to other TV stations. Right Honourable Speaker, there is also another thing which the committee brought out clearly, the issue of land. And I think if you also look, if you read the recommendations of the earlier committee, it talked about redundant assets. The media world has gone digital. We may not be, all that land, we may not need it right now as UBC, because we are not in that field. And I think we shall again discuss with the committee, and we look at what we should do to these redundant assets. Because right now, one doesn't need to put up a huge building to broadcast. You can even broadcast under a small room, and then you move. So some of those things are things which we need to look at, and then we see how we can turn these assets into very, very productive assets instead of being very redundant. Because even
Honourable Minister, can we conclude, because we are going to have a chance to handle most of these issues during processing the Ministerial Policy Statement, where we shall be recommending to give you money.
Yeah, thank you very much, Right Honourable. And for the issue which Honourable talked about of these assets, when UBC and when UTV and Radio Uganda merged into UBC, UBC took over all the assets and liabilities. So the issue of being young or not, no. When you inherit your father's land, you don't need to be very young or very old. We have already inherited everything, and we have to protect those assets. I thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. You had.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I want to thank the honourable members, and most especially on the submissions that came severally from members on the management of UBC. Right Honourable Speaker, I think we have discussed this even with the ministry, and when you look into our recommendations, we have touched on editorial, we have touched on the staff, we have touched on the board and management. And I think as Parliament, we need to emphasize that government looks into the issues of management of UBC to ensure that people who are competent and ready to work are put both at the board and then the management. And then all these other issues would fall in. Because if that is not done, it's true, members would say money is being sunk and we are not getting output or anything out of it. I totally agree with you, and this is why we have come to re-echo the recommendation of the review committee and plus other things. But, Right Honourable Speaker, I want to mention one thing that the minister said. The Kololo land, UPDF have got their land. But before Radio Uganda and TV Uganda were merged, they also had Posta, Uganda Post and Telecommunication, East African Post and Telecommunication within the same area. But Ministry of ICT oversees the operations of both UBC, UCTL, and Posta. So this is the responsibility of the minister, who is supposed to sit and take decision and come with a clear position, whether it is a UCTL or Posta or UBC to take charge of this land, and then instrument is provided for that. And I think that is what the ministry should take, and what we told them, provide an instrument to stop this war, so that whoever is going to be in charge is in charge, but you get out to sort out the other entities on how they should operate on this land. So that I wanted to come clear. But for UPDF, they have their land legitimately, but they fenced it off. UBC have got masks. Some of them are using guy wires that are very long, crossing into UPDF land. So sometimes UPDF does not allow them to access to, in times of repair and servicing or fixing their networks. It becomes a problem. The request for accessing can take so long. So that's where the conflict is coming, but not so much on the land. And I want to agree that UBC have got viewership, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable Omara Paul here is always on UBC on Thursdays, I think. Wednesdays, like today, is going there. Tomorrow, behind the scene. Behind the headline, and a very popular program. So, but the problem is we were not able to get exactly the number of people, the millions of people who watch UBC, because that was difficult. But to be sure, the number of people who views UBC have increased. Right Honourable Speaker, even the programs are coming up, but we would want them to step up, to be more competitive, to become commercially viable, while at the same time providing the public good, Right Honourable Speaker. I want to thank them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Chair, when you're coming for MPS and you want to address issues around that of viewership, there is an agency called Ipsos. That's what many advertisers use. Ipsos, okay?
Yes.
Yes, and you can see that's why Honorable Bwaru even wanted to talk about.
I'm a radio man.
Okay.
And that's our area.
So because you see, these entities, whereas government can say, we are putting out desirable information, me, a private entity, a private business, I follow viewership. I'm like, if I place my advert with you, how many people will I reach? Okay? So that's very, very critical. So you need to get, and then we are able to say, but UBC, why is it that this TV is managing to reach this kind of viewership? For you, you are not, okay? Honourable Minister for Finance. No, honourable colleagues, please wait. I have 2 items I must finish today.
Mr. Speaker,
which we must finish.
In the report,
yes, Honorable Minister for Finance.
in the report, there was a matter touching supplementary for UBC. I wish to inform the House that in this financial year we provided a supplementary to UBC under 3%, and all the money has been given to them. Yes. How did this arise?
How much was it?
It was around 24 point something billion.
The minister, your colleague, the minister is saying
Yes.
money.
How did this arise, Mr. Speaker? This arose as UBC is a subvention, and we did a general rationalization of 80% across board to all subventions, and this affected even areas which were critical like UBC. When we realized this, we passed a supplementary to them, which we've paid. And also in this budget, you may initially see a reduction in their budget, but we have picked it and we shall address it through our agenda.
Okay. Honourable Minister, does any TR from UBC go to the consolidated fund or they spend at source? Does any TR from UBC go to the consolidated fund or it's spent at source?
I need to check that right now.
Because, no, honourable colleagues, we shall look. This is a matter. This is the matter we shall handle. This is the matter we shall handle at ministerial policy statement level when we are going through the deeper part of. Whenever you had an amendment, yeah.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. The amendment I wish to propose on page 18.
Just Honourable a minute. Just a minute. Honourable Boss wanted to make some. Maybe he wants order UPDF to remove the gate and it was cleared. You've settled your matter. No, Honourable Minister is here. I was giving a chance. I'm not giving members a chance. I finish.
Right Honourable Speaker, thank you for your indulgence. When I listened to Honourable Ayo, he explained the allegation on the UPDF. And actually, what is stated in the explanation is conflicting with the report. It said that the UPDF has land there legitimately, but it is UTL that has constructed wrongly that they are to access their facility, they have to, their wires are hanging the other side.
No, he said you fenced your land.
We fenced our land,
Yeah,
which every prudent landowner should do.
Yeah.
So, did we encroach by fencing, or is something that this House can recommend and we sort it out? It wasn't very clear.
I think the report needs to be very clear. Okay, if UPDF is controlling their own land, what UBC should be asking is for access and an easement. Yeah.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I was trying to make a clarification that before UPDF fencing off the land, UBC had installed their mast and part of their wires were in the land at the border with the UPDF's land. But also in the fencing, UBC is claiming the fencing got a little bit inside their land. But that will not be a problem. But the problem comes in when they want to access to repair their mast. Then accessing becomes very difficult. Thank you.
Yeah, so what is very important is the recommendations, okay? On the recommendations, Honorable Boss, they don't recommend anything about UPDF, okay? So, but what I would advise on this would be Prime Minister, take up the matter. Minister for ICT, Minister for Defense, you meet and you have this. This is government supporting government. And I'm very sure UPDF is also giving serious security to UBC installations up there, okay? So, Prime Minister, let us have this resolved. And Honorable Minister for Finance, I saw the signs and I didn't want to escalate it. But what I would propose is you go back, you cross-check if all the money has been released.
Mr. Speaker, you know, some of the things are a bit technical. When we say there was an understatement at the start of the year, and we collected this through a supplementary, we issued a general cash limit of 24 billion on assumption that this will go throughout the year and we release money in quarters. So that means UBC has that budget, and on a quarterly basis, we release to them. By June, they will have received all.
Okay, that's better. Because the information I have is that now they have 80 billion, have received 80 billion. You know, colleagues, because Honorable Msasi said these are technical matters, he also technically amends. He made a technical amendment to his submission. And I think we take it at that. Honorable Aisha? Yeah.
Right, Honorable Speaker, you saved your Minister for ICT. I saw him very happy with the resolution. But I propose an amendment on page 18, and it is to the effect of revamping UBC. The recommendation that reads, the committee recommends that the recommendations of UBC Review Committee should be fully implemented with a view of improving the operations of the national broadcaster. The committee further recommends that the above recommendations be implemented within 2 years. Right, Honorable Speaker, for an organization that has been adamant for 8 years to simply say implement the recommendations of the other committee may not help us. I pray that we amend it and say that within a period of 2 months, the minister shall make a statement on the proposed action plans for revamping UBC to self-sustenance and explain why they did not implement the recommendations of the review committee of 2016.
Yes, that sounds brilliant, but Honorable Aisha would propose, because you see, when we are invoking Rule 220 on action taken report, we shall not invoke it in bits. It needs to be one, okay? So I would think that indeed we task the committee, the sectoral committee, when they are bringing when they are processing the policy statement, it looks deeply into these issues of UBC. I was also thinking that COSASE should process the Auditor General report on UBC within 1 month and report back so that it can aid the committee and the House when we are appropriating and processing the Ministerial Policy Statement. I think we can have in a win-win. I don't know what you think on evaluation.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I was only proposing to the effect that the recommendations of the other committee were not on record. The committee that had been put in place by the minister, they're not on record. But if the minister makes an action plan to revamping UBC, would have made a formal commitment to the House. But since you have proposed that we give way for the committee to study the recommendations you've guided, the committee to study recommendations deeply and later on inform Parliament and the minister, I submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, colleagues, I put the question that the report of the Sectoral Committee on Information, Communication Technology and National Guidance on the operations and the performance of the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation be adopted. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Honourable Minister. We shall need you to report back to this House on these issues within 3 months. Okay?